You looking at her bio.
You are tuned in to What a Baltimore Online Radio. Please note that the views and opinions expressed are of the host and not of Lady J Media. Thank you and enjoy the show. Hey everybody, it's 50 Shades of Red with Dee and Cantana. These ladies are definitely on fire. Stay tuned, you don't want to miss this.
Hi, I'm Dee.
And I'm Quintana.
Welcome to the 50 Shades of Red talk show,
where we encourage, empower, and embrace you to live life to the full. What up, Baltimore?
We are so grateful to be back on the air with you guys, and we are so happy to have one of our friends.
Yes.
From way back. I'm not going to say way back, but one of our beautiful ladies that we interacted with. And I just want you all to just kick back, and you're going to be in for a real treat. This beautiful lady, her name is Rhonda Darville. And once she speaks, you'll probably can tell where she hails from. She's founder and missionary at Bahamas God Parent Center, a freelance writer, a wife, a mother, following a friend and following God's will in my life. Studied biblical studies at Liberty University, and a host of a whole lot of other things. But because we want to get right to the topic at hand and to have some girl time to talk with her and catch up, you guys will just be listening in. Okay, how about that? And we're going to go ahead and just catch up on some old times. And Rhonda, welcome to the 50 Shades of Red talk show. We're so excited.
It is a pleasure. It is a pleasure.
If there is anything that you want to tell our listening audience, we're going to give you free reign to do just that. So if you want to tell them a little bit about, and a little bit more about who you are, go right ahead and do that.
Well, I'm Rhonda, like she said, and I'm from the Caribbean. I will tell you where I'm from because a lot of times people hear my accent and they will confuse it with another Caribbean country. So I'm from the great country of the Bahamas.
Yay!
Many islands, but I'm from Nassau. I met these ladies, like they said, years ago in Lynchburg, Virginia. And obviously we've become fast friends. It's been a while, but it's such a pleasure to get back and connect with them. Along with my many accomplishments that Dee has called out, I am a wife. I am a wife, a well-loved wife, a mother, and a grandmother.
Yes. Yay for grannies.
Yes.
I'm one too.
And because we're in Florida right now, and I like Spanish things and different things like that, I tried to be abuela, but my daughter was like, "You're not Spanish, so no, that can't happen." So I said, "Well, anyways, call me Bella then," and that fit even better because Bella means beautiful in Italian.
Beautiful.
Hey,
I love Bella.
Yes, that's nice.
I am a lover of Christ.
Yes.
Before anything else, everything else that we've talked about is great. It's important. But before anything else and above everything else, I am a lover of Christ. I am saved. I love the word of God. My daughter says I'm a Jesus freak. So
yes, that's right. Yes, we are. Yes,
we are Jesus freaks. Absolutely.
And I said, okay, I've been called a lot of names, and if that's the name I got to be called, then I'm okay with that.
Absolutely.
So that's just a little bit of me.
Well, I wanted to lead in with hoping you would tell our audience how we met each other, because that
Okay.
would be the perfect segue into you sharing a little bit about your story.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
How did we meet?
Okay,
How did we
perfect.
meet, Jonathan?
Well, like I said, we met in Lynchburg, Virginia. I worked with no, when we met, I wasn't working at there yet.
No, you
We
were not.
we I right. We met at how do I say it? It's a Bible study, but it was a recovering Bible study. It was a post-abortion Bible study
Mm-hmm.
for women who had experienced abortions and was looking for healing. It
Yeah.
was called Forgiven and Set Free. And that's how we
Mm-hmm.
met. We were all in this Bible study together. And how I was in this Bible study, I was doing a different Bible study at my church and going through Beth Moore's Breaking Free, and
Mm-hmm.
came up upon this situation. And God was telling me to divulge it. Well, like I said, I'm from the Caribbean and I was in Lynchburg, Virginia, and my church, my husband is Caucasian, so I want everybody to know right up front. Okay, he's Caucasian, but the majority of people in the church were Caucasian. So here I was, he was saying, I was one of the leaders, I was a table leader, and he was saying to share my story, and I was like, no, I don't want to do that.
No,
I'm
not
like,
doing that.
it's very few of me in here, the chocolate people in here, and I don't want to share this story, But he said, do you seek to please me or do you seek to please man? And I was like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
that was it. And when I shared, somebody said to me, you can go to this pregnancy center. And I said, why would I be going to a pregnancy center? You
Right.
know? And they said, well, no. They work with people who have had abortions. I said, well, it's 20 some years. I don't need help. I don't need healing. And
Mm-hmm.
there's like, call the lady, just call the lady and talk to her. And I called over there. Her name was Lori. She was the executive director. And as we spoke on the phone, she told me her story. And
Mm-hmm.
her story was also post-abortive. And here she is. She had been on the 700 Club. She was an executive director. She was doing great things in Central Virginia. And I hadn't thought about it before then, but sometimes some things that you do in your life, some sins that you do, makes you feel sometimes that you're limited in your ability to do other things.
Mm-hmm.
And so as I heard her story, I was like, okay, maybe I should do this healing. And she said, yes, come on. And that's how we met. And I will tell you, I thought I didn't need it, but every Wednesday night I went home after that, I would crawl into my husband's arms and just share and cry with him. Just,
Mm-hmm.
and I did. I found the healing that I need and the freedom. That was the key. It said forgiven and set free. And let me tell you
Mm-hmm.
something. Who he sets free is free indeed, and I've been free ever since. And so
Beautiful.
that's how we met.
That is
Yes,
exactly.
yes.
And I too came to that crossroad where I knew that I needed help. I needed to be
Mm-hmm.
able to talk about it.
Yeah.
But I was ashamed and
Yes.
guilt-ridden
Mm-hmm.
and just determined that I didn't deserve forgiveness for one thing after
Right.
taking the life of my unborn child. And I
Correct.
had a hard time even saying the word abortion. I was on
Mm-hmm.
lockdown and I
Mm-hmm.
didn't understand why there were seasons of depression and
Mhm.
anger and suicidal tendencies. I didn't understand the root cause of where all of that was coming from until
Yes.
I took the post-abortive Bible study. And
Mm-hmm.
we want our listening audience to know that if there is anybody out there that are post-abortive, and you may not think you are dealing with the symptoms from that act, you may not understand it. You may think, oh, that was years and years and years ago. It could still be affecting my life. But let
Right.
me tell you, along with the rest of us,
Yes.
that's what's affecting your decisions,
Yes.
your choices, your emotions, your feelings from time to time, because you're holding on to that one
Yes.
thing that you're holding on to.
That you
And
refuse
so,
to admit about.
yes,
Yes.
and
Yes.
so I am grateful because I ran from that healing and that forgiveness from God for years. It was over 20 years for me too, Rhonda.
Right. Well, see, the thing is that you guys wouldn't even realize you probably had been just the topic of abortion isn't something that was discussed in my country, right? So
Mm-hmm.
this was brand new to me coming into this environment. I mean, I remember sitting in the church one January, and the pastor was talking about it. And I was like, oh, what's going on? Like, oh my gosh. And then I was like, oh my God, he's talking to me, you know? So I hadn't, it was literally like a slam in my face because it was like, wow, this thing is real. Talking about pro-life or pro-choice, I had no idea what any of that was. So when I talk about being forgiven and set free, I really mean that, because this is something that I had never faced anywhere. It was in a Pandora's box. It was locked up. My husband knew. It was never something that was discussed. I never heard about it anywhere in my country. So I had literally just been in Virginia, maybe 6 months or so, when I had been exposed to this. But now I'm going to tell them how long I've known you guys now, because now it's been almost, almost 20 years, girls.
Almost. Man, oh man.
Almost 20
For
years.
myself at the time, I had 2 abortions, and when Dee shared her story and how she felt and talked about going to this Bible study class, because I had, other than my family members, no one else knew about my abortions. And when she mentioned this class, I was like, well, it never dawned on me that I needed to be delivered from both of my abortions.
Right, me neither. That was the one thing
Correct.
I would take to my grave, quite honestly.
Right.
That I would not speak on it ever again. I would hold it. And God was determined that He was going to set me free from that one thing.
Yeah, and it's one thing, so, I think one of the things that we experienced was that, we have living children, right? Like, I had a living daughter and a stepson, and so here it was, I'm being
We're having some slight technical difficulties with Rhonda's audio, so hopefully it'll come back in. If you've just joined us, we're
face to
talking
face
about
that are in heaven,
There you go. We're having some audio difficulties. Can you hear us?
Can you hear us, Rhonda?
Okay, she'll pop back in hopefully with the audio pretty soon. But we're talking about the experience of being post-abortive and what that feels like prior to being forgiven and set free. And Kantana and I are able to share our stories from the standpoint of freedom and victory, because we were able to confess it and let it go. And Rhonda will come back in with us at any time. That's fine. So we just want to be able to bring Rhonda on because she was in the group in our class that we had.
And as a result of having been in that class, and as a result of her being post-abortive, her and her husband have a wonderful ministry that we were hoping that she was going to talk about.
Yes, absolutely.
On the show tonight.
Absolutely. Because as a result of her being forgiven and set free, she went on and implemented some things back home.
Yes.
As where she said back home before, it was never talked about. She didn't know anything about that topic as far as being an open discussion where she lived. So soon she'll come back in. Hopefully she'll pop back into the show and tell you guys some more about that. But Kantana and I, this is one of the things that led us to do the women's ministry that we do, this platform, because there's one thing that we hold on to that we need to let go of and be forgiven of. And my one thing may not be your one thing, or it may not be your one thing even, but God is the forgiver of everything.
Yes.
Everything. There's nothing that he wants us to hold back or be ashamed of or feel guilty about, because Jesus paid the price for us to have forgiveness. There you are.
Hi.
Hi,
Hi,
can you hear
Rhonda.
us?
Yes, I lost you when I was coming back into the thing. It said, make sure you have good lighting. It makes you look fabulous. And I was like, oh my, I'm in a room with not good lighting. So
Oh, you're still beautiful. I'm so glad to
Yes.
see you. But we were
yes.
hoping that you had mentioned that in your country you didn't talk about women having abortions. And so as a result of you being forgiven and set free, what did you do? You beeline back to the Bahamas and did what?
Well, like I said, I stayed in Virginia until 2012. And then, honestly, we thought that God was sending us to Miami, Florida. And why?
Hmm.
You hear about gateway drugs and different things like that. Miami is
Yeah.
a
Yes.
gateway. And Miami is one of those places that's the highest rate of abortions. So I said, okay, honey, this makes sense. He got an opening there, down there to teach. And I said, okay, I'll get involved in ministries down there. And I did.
Hmm.
And then one Saturday morning, about 4 o'clock, I'm not an early bird, right? I'm a night owl. And so 4 o'clock in the morning, God, the Holy Spirit is just downloading this stuff.
Yes.
And I'm like, whoa, okay, God's talking to me, like really talking to me. So I roll over and I said to my husband, I said, baby, can you go with me to the beach? Please. He says, what? It's 4 o'clock in the morning. I was like, yeah, but God's telling me some stuff and I got to put this down in
Yes.
my journal, you know?
Yes.
So he said to me, he says, baby, you go to the beach. He ain't talking to me. I'm not going to the beach with you. Oh my. So anyway, it was May. And so it get light quickly. So I went about 5 o'clock and I opened my journal to the middle of the journal because I said what he's telling me is very vital and very important. And so I opened it to the middle of the journal and I wrote, and it was saying, you're going to start a pregnancy center. You're going back home. This is what we want to do. This is where I want it to be, blah, blah, blah. And I had 3 pages.
Mhm.
And I said, wow, okay. So I went back home and I told him, I said, well, this is what the Holy Spirit told me. This is what I got. And he says,
Mhm.
well, if God's telling us that we're going back home, then I guess he's going to provide a job for me because he's telling you to go into ministry. So we have to live.
Mhm.
Well, in the Bahamas, it that weekend was a holiday weekend, and Monday would have been a holiday too. So I made one call and I told one of my girlfriends. I said, "Hey, so this is what God's telling me. We need to see if Jeff can get a job. You see if there's any openings anywhere else." Well, I'll tell you. By Tuesday, he had a Bible teaching position that he didn't really have applied or even knew it was open, right?
Mm,
Mhm.
And
right.
so we after the school year in Miami, we went home in June and I started research, right? Because I had been working for the last 7 years in pro-life ministry, but I had been working, as a staffer, as a
Yes.
counselor. So now he's saying, I am the one who is going to go put this thing forward.
Right.
And
Mhm.
I'm like,
So
okay,
that
I
was
don't
your
know.
training ground right there.
Yes. So I started to do advocacy. And what advocacy really is to go into the community and share with people what you're coming to do, what the need is, so that you can now formulate a plan and put something in place.
Right.
So everywhere I go, everybody was like, we don't know what you're talking about. What is this? Like, well, abortion is illegal, so we don't have abortions happening. I said, well, I sure had two. So I know there's other
So it's
people,
happening.
right? And that's been 20 some years. So I know there's other
Mhm.
people that this is happening too.
Mhm.
Right.
So I said, okay. So we started to do surveys in the school. And when we
Mm.
did the surveys in the schools, it was
Perfect.
very, very eye opening. And this was
Wow.
high school, guys.
In the
9th to
Bahamas.
12th graders in the Bahamas. We
Mm.
send them surveys because my husband was teaching. So I
Yeah.
had an in to be able to get the surveys in.
Right.
And it was anonymous. So the kids didn't have to say, and they said, yeah, we know or we have experienced abortions. These are high school students.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
And so we knew that what we were doing was good. So we spent the next couple of months trying to figure out, okay, now how do we fund this thing? Because, well, this needs money, right?
Right.
And I don't
Right.
Mhm.
have no money. I've been in ministry for years. And so one of the pastors said that one my spiritual father who was my pastor before I left, he had a Bible school, and he said, Rhonda, you can use my place when I'm not there. And so we were able to move in there, and we started to use that.
Mhm.
And then my current pastor at the church in the Bahamas, we talked about us becoming missionaries, coming in as missionaries. So I said, okay. He said, there's a missions conference coming up in March, so y'all
Mhm.
can go forward as missionaries. So the other thing that I did was, again, he said, a founder. Well, Laurie wasn't a founder. The center that she was working had already begun. So she
Mhm.
didn't know the groundworks. So
Right.
I called her and she says, well, Rhonda, I'm in Myrtle Beach now. And the lady that I work with, she's the founder of her center. So I said, perfect.
Mm. Wow.
Put me in touch with her. Well, she put me in touch with her, and she and I talked, and she coached me through some things. And she says, you have to do an introduction to the community, try to get in the newspaper or the TV or something like that. And so we did
Mhm.
that, and we did a little dinner. We did a small dinner to introduce ourselves to the community, and got some people on board who were going to be board members. And that's how we started. We had a nice write up in the paper. We had a young couple that we had been working with who came forward and shared their story. We shared
Mm-hmm.
our story. And so we got a couple of churches behind us. And um, we grew, we were able to grow from that point and get into our own space. And February 14th. February 14th is the day that we mark as our first day, because February 14th is when I called and ordered the actual documents and everything from Heartbeat International. And
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
so we marked that date because that's when I put in my order for actual things to come in.
Wow.
Wow.
And so February 14th, we did that. So February 14th, 2021, we would have been on the ground for 7 years.
Wow.
And
That's
so
awesome.
it's been
And that's so
it's been something.
encouraging because when God tells you to do something,
Mhm.
and we're the ones that's always wanting to say, well, are you sure? And how am I going to do this? And we start
Mhm.
looking at the lack of resources and
Yes.
everything as to why we can't. God has already figured all of that stuff out.
Yes.
And he's all we got to do is take that first step in obedience
Yes.
and by
Yes.
faith, and he
Yes.
starts to open the doors.
That's right.
And
Yes.
so it didn't take long at all for you guys, for your husband to you got the vision, you wrote it down, you made it plain, you shared it with your kingdom, with your kingship, your
Mhm.
husband, and he bought into it,
And
and
ran
off
with
you
it.
go.
Yeah.
The
And because he
power of
knew.
unity and agreement.
Yeah. I think that's what he said. He says, babes, one thing I know is God speaks to you. I know that for a
That's right.
fact. And
Amen.
so
Yeah.
I don't have any problem with us moving on this. This is a big thing. And I came in as the executive director, and he came in as the resources director. And so he worked with churches and communities and different things like
Mhm.
that, trying to get us
Mhm.
in the doors. And there came a point where I said, okay, sweetie, churches would invite us in to come and speak and say they would give us 20 minutes on the pulpit, 15 minutes, 10 minutes. And one church we spoke with, when I went in and I spoke with the pastor, he says, oh, you could have my pulpit. And I was like, oh, nobody does this.
Yes.
Right.
Well, Rhonda, your center has a very unique name. How did you come up with the name?
Oh boy, that one is good. Well, Bahamas Godparent Center. In the Bahamas, we all have godparents. And I can't speak for the US or different demographics, but I know in the Bahamas, when we baptize or we put our children forward in church after they are born, you have that parent and then you have a slew of godparents. Okay. And every demographic of people, everybody has a godparent. So I knew people would understand what that meant. Right? And what is the role of a godparent? A godparent is supposed to come beside those parents, right? And raise them up in the fear and admonition of the Lord. And so that's what I saw our center as, coming beside these parents to be able to assist them, you know. And so that's why we use the name, because we knew anybody, it would resonate with people exactly what because again, remember, they couldn't understand the pro-life, pro-choice. They didn't get that. Right. So how do we get people to really recognize? So when we're saying that we would be able to give gifts or help them with material goods or different things like that, again, that's what a godparent does. The godparents, my godparents, they used to come by the house and they would bring me gifts, or they would come to our school events or whatever. I could call my godparents at any given time. And so that's what we were. So we offer counseling, right? And again, it could be those who want to parent, those who are unsure if they want to parent, those who have already experienced an abortion. And I'll tell you, it actually grew. Because we were talking about sexual purity and different things like that and how to live a good life. We had young adults, men and women, coming in and say, hey, I need help just to live life in the right way.
Wow.
You know?
Nice.
They were leaders in their church. They were leaders in their community. And I said, well, who are you working with? They said, yeah, but they don't ask those questions. So what happened was, when I went in and I would do presentations elsewhere in these different places, because I would come straight to the point and ask them, well, how they're living, what they're doing. They're like, well, you seem like you're getting straight to the point. You're not beating around the bush. You're coming straight at us. And I said, yeah, because you have to. If you really want to do this, you have to be real. And so they started to come in, and I'm like, okay, babe, this is a whole different group of people.
Right.
But the thing is, you have to meet the need.
Interject there when you said you had men and women.
Yes,
I just wanted to interject that when a woman has an abortion, it affects the life of that seed sower or that father of that unborn child as well. And we oftentimes don't think men suffer when a woman has an abortion, but oftentimes they do. And so they do. To walk in forgiveness and love as well.
We had a lot of men who came in who had depression and different things. Some who didn't know that they had aborted. Some who said, well, whatever you decide to do. One of our biggest supporters was and I'll just give you their story briefly. It was a pastor and his wife. And they said, our second child, who is here today, he would have been aborted, because here we were starting this church. We had a child already. Money was tight, and we got pregnant. And we thought, hey, we're going to abort him. Now, he was a pastor. They were a young couple at the time. And he said to her, he says, well, whatever you think is best. Now, I want you, if you're in that spiritual realm right now, where have we heard that the man abdicated his role to be able to take charge And that started all the way back in Garden of Eden.
Yes,
When
Yes.
that's
when she
right.
was
That's
offered
right.
that
Come
fruit,
on
Yeah.
the
now.
Bible says he was right there.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
And he know the
Absolutely.
truth. He knew the
Mhm.
truth because he had
That's right.
spoken to God first-handed.
Yes, that's
Okay?
good.
And
I
it's
want
the
to
same
welcome
thing.
some of our people that are joining. We've got Lisa Hawthorne, welcome, and we've got
Welcome.
Pastor Priscilla Glover.
Lover.
Welcome, Pastor P. It's good to see you. Thank you so much, Lisa and Pastor P, for joining us. And Pastor P's putting comments in there as you're
Yes.
talking.
Yes.
She's putting comments in. So if anybody wants to use the call-in number, also it's on the screen. Feel free.
Yes.
If you've got something you would like to share using the call-in number, please feel free to do that. Okay. So go ahead.
Yes.
I am really all into what you're saying. My
Yeah.
spirit is
And so
leaping and
we
dancing.
hear it. We hear it all the time. The gentleman, he would say, do what you want to do. No, 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 no. Listen, when we
Mhm.
go into organizations, we are invited in. We say that we deal with men and women because both of them get pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
Because a
Yes.
woman can't get pregnant by herself. We
That's
only had
That's
one
right.
of
true.
them.
That's right.
That's
That's
true.
right.
Okay? We only
Oh
had
my
one of
goodness.
them, and you ain't never gonna have no more of them ever. Okay? So
That
yes,
is
men get
Yes.
pregnant
so
That's
too.
true.
right.
Because you need a sperm and you need an egg.
That's
Okay?
right.
That's the reality. Okay?
So a
Exactly.
man
So
needs a woman and a woman needs
Needs
a
a
man.
man.
exactly.
And I'm not
Exactly.
going nowhere with that other
No,
than
just
right
leave
there for
that
now.
alone.
She said, leave that alone.
That's a whole nother segment we'll
A
have to do.
whole nother show, right?
But people would say, what do you mean men? I say, well, men get pregnant too. They are part of this dynamic also, right? And
Mhm.
some people will
That's
say, well, a
right.
man shouldn't speak to abortions. Why shouldn't men speak to it?
That's right.
Why shouldn't men? They're fathers just as we were mothers. The
Mm-hmm.
men that I and you all aborted those babies for, they're fathers. They're
That's
just
right.
fathers of their children.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
We have a question for you, Rhonda. Pastor P says, do women do it more? Meaning, do they have abortions more because they don't ask the man for his permission?
Permission.
Mm.
I no, no. I can see it. I've seen it 50-50. And like I said, I've been counseling women for 15 years, right? 50.
You
Oh, I'm just over
prophesying
50. And we see it about 50%. Um, a lot of people unfortunately are in relationships that were already toxic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Also,
Yes.
Yes.
yes,
Yep.
Yes.
also you would find that a lot of people are doing hookups. And so they come into the
Mhm.
office and they says, "Oh my gosh, I'm pregnant." And I said, "Well, how did you get pregnant?" And they said, "Well, sex." I said, "Well, you didn't know sex is make you pregnant, eh?" So no, it's not just it's not just uh women who didn't ask or whatever. Sometimes they're doing it because they know that the gentleman doesn't want the child. Sometimes
Mhm.
the guy does want the child, but the woman feels
Doesn't woman.
that she is limited in what she could do. And I'll tell you, in my country, it is harder. I'll
Okay.
give you an example. When one time I was dealing with a young woman at the center, and she had 3 kids, and she says, "I'm unemployed, um, but I receive a check." So I was like, "A check? Well, how do you receive a check if you're unemployed?" So
Mhm.
I didn't understand. So a lot of times whilst we're in the room with somebody, the other woman would be praying. So I said, "Give me a second, please. Let me go and get some information for you." And when I went out, um, I asked him, I said, "I don't understand." Well, in your country, you have a lot of social services.
Mm-hmm.
You have WIC, you have all of these things that
That's
people can
right.
get. In my country, that's not so. That's not
Mhm.
so. And so women find it hard to support themselves, right? if they are
Okay.
not left with that male support, because the government in my country, it's not like that. It's not the same. It's
Okay.
not the same. It's not as easy, you see? And so
Mm-hmm.
they're thinking, as if I'm by myself, or they have a lot of pressure. In my country, we have a lot of pressure from the family members, right?
Mm,
Because
Mm-hmm.
we have to keep face, right?
right.
I come from a very proud community. We're very educated. We want the best for everybody. And so my daughter's showing up pregnant. Now I know she was out there doing stuff, right? I know that, right?
Right.
But now she's showing up pregnant. That's not a thing. I don't want everybody to know.
Right.
Everybody already knows she's out there, but now they really will know. And so
Mm-hmm.
they get a lot of pressure from the family. And your family is your biggest support in my country. So I would say it's 50-50. I find in my country it's more the family pressure than anything
Mm-hmm.
else. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
times. And sometimes they want to keep the children. Um, Unfortunately, again, in my country, you have the cost of living is very high, you know. And so, for instance, we don't have a lot of maternity support homes and different things like that. That's something we want to do at some point. But
Mm-hmm.
our dollar's on par with the US, and our cost of living is, let's say, similar to Los Angeles, New York, Hawaii.
Oh
So,
wow.
Mm-hmm.
right. So, to be able to put something like that in place is going to cost quite a bit. Dee,
Mm-hmm.
you said something earlier too. You talked about walking in obedience, and sometimes when we don't see how we're going to do things, you know, as a believer, one thing I've learned is that people hear our successes sometimes, and they don't hear our failures. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
and I just wanted to touch base on this because this year was hard. The last two
Mm-hmm.
years have been hard,
Right.
and last October uh, it hit me in a physical way where I was incapable of being able to do anything. I didn't want to take a call when the phone rang. I didn't want to take an email, anything. I couldn't do anything. And so I
Wow.
was just physically depleted. There was nothing left. And I told my husband, I don't have anything left. And I'm like, okay, I have this ministry that I know I need to be running, and I have nothing left. What do I do, God? And
Mm-hmm.
so with the pandemic and everything, we were still doing virtual sessions, you know,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
and and this year I wrestled with God. I don't know what the next step is going to be. I'm going to step down as the executive director. I don't know what the next step is going to be. And I kept praying and kept asking him, what's next? Because the funds were depleted.
Okay.
Okay. We've been getting for the last year, say $600 a month. Okay. What is that going to do? How is that going? How are we going to support anything? And
Right.
I'm like, God, I don't know what to do. And somebody said to me the other day, well, it's not yours to begin with. It was always God. So I said, you're right. I
That's
don't
true.
need to stress out too much about this. Um, about 3 months ago, my everything just through a lot of prayer and fasting and just staying in the word and staying isolated. I had to isolate myself for a while because I was not doing
Mm-hmm.
well, and I
Mm-hmm.
had a lot of medical things to deal with. I was able to start to go back out into public and do different things. And just this week, God gave me the answer. And He says, Rhonda, well, one of the things is that you can possibly the ministry, right? To now. So in the seventh year, we're restructuring,
Mm.
right?
Okay.
We're going to be
Okay.
restructuring, and we're going to be
Related.
Okay.
using our churches more.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're going to bring the
Mm-hmm.
churches who have been supporting us and who have been with us a bit more. And so there, I'm going to be asking them, and this is new, this is brand new, guys. Nobody else knows this, right? I'm going to be asking them to take over some of the hands and the feet aspect of
Mm-hmm.
the
Yeah,
ministry.
Oh, okay.
that
I
makes
believe
sense.
that's important because one of the things, our ultimate goal is I'm a counselor, but my ultimate goal is to bring that person to the foot of Jesus, to bring that
Mm-hmm.
person to the foot of the cross, period.
Yes.
Because I can't give them forgiveness and they can't
That's
forgive
right.
themselves.
That's right.
Okay? It can only come from the master. And
That's
so,
right.
but beyond that, they need a body of believers to help them carry them
Yes.
through.
Yes.
And that's one thing we've always done. We've tried to place the people who come through our doors in a good Bible teaching church. And so if I can get these churches to come on board and say, okay, let's help in this way. Let's be a little bit more hands and feet in this area. That would eliminate the need for staff. That would eliminate the need for a building. And we'll still do virtual counseling sessions.
Nice.
Okay,
Nice.
so that's some of what we're looking at for the new year as we go forward. So has the struggle been real? Yes, but Nehemiah built a wall when the odds were against him.
That's
Right.
right.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Pastor
Right.
P, she talking about Nehemiah.
Listen, that's one of my best, right? And God's still talking. It's just, are you listening?
Yeah.
And are you listening? And for me, I had to stop. I almost had to stop everything so I could just hear him. We talk about a lot of self-care and different things like that. And I think I wasn't taking care of myself. I think I had taken on as if it was my own. Almost this thing where you say, if I don't do it, nobody else will. Well,
Yeah.
that's not right. That doesn't even make no sense, right? That makes
That's
absolutely
right.
no sense.
Right.
Yes, he called me. Yes, he gave me the word. But hey, sometimes we could be the block, right? And that's where I felt. And so that's why I knew he had to say, okay, you need to step back for a minute and look at this. And so that's what happened. So here I was looking at it in Zoom, in full Zoom. And he says, you need to step back, Rhonda. And as I stepped back, I was able to look with a bigger picture,
Okay.
and be able to see a little bit more clearer. So we've been doing, like I said, virtual sessions for a long time now. And I believe it's going to allow me to open up to more of our US counterparts who are looking for ways to help third world countries like ours.
Yes.
So, yeah.
That's awesome. That is an amazing way to bring the corporate body together.
I was thinking the
Yes.
same thing.
Because it's time for us to come back together corporately
Yes.
and do the work. Because honestly, we all have many gifts and talents and anointings. And God wants us to all come together and bring it all together so the body can be fitly joined together, many members, but one body. And there's some things that we can only do corporately, collectively. And so I think it's an amazing idea that God has given you, because he gave it to you, to bring the corporate body together in that regards to help, because that's a huge job and you can reach more people, more families, making greater impact when everybody's working together. So I like that. And I'm kind of getting some ideas in listening to Rhonda share her story about the work that she's doing and helping women and men and families heal after the woman's having had an abortion. And so if you've been joining us and listening in to Rhonda sharing a story, and you feel like that you want to come forward and that you need support and help, reach out to One Thing Coaching Solutions, because we are here to help women navigate that one thing that's holding them, keeping them tethered to their past. And so for you, it may be abortion, it may not be, it may be something else, but nevertheless, you're tied to that thing.
That's right.
And until you can release it and let it go, you're going to be tied to it, and it's going to hinder what you can do going forward.
That's right.
Going forward. So reach out. And if you've got a wonderful support group in your household of faith, go to them. If you feel that is, where you can confidentially, share, and that it's going to be handled with wisdom. Okay. Go to your households of faith and share that. So it's all about getting free.
That's right.
And just letting go. Letting that thing go so you can just breathe
and move forward in life.
Because
that thing is affecting you in more ways than you think.
Absolutely.
It's one of those things that's killing you softly.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's good. And it's something that, it whispers to you. Just when you think it's over and done, you hear it. In that still whisper of a voice saying, I'm still here. I remember what you did, And so God is the one that can wipe the slate clean. He can clean your whiteboard whiter than snow so that nobody can ever tell what was written on it.
That's right.
So we want you guys to be able to just walk in freedom and walk in love. And that's what our talk show is really what it's all about. Pastor P says some what is it? Some water, some plant. Yeah. God does the increase. That's and sometimes we are visionaries that need support to carry it further than we can alone. And that's why it's so important to connect corporately.
Yes.
So that's where the gifts and the anointing can flow and make a bigger impact.
Because you can't always do it all alone.
We can't always do it all alone. You're exactly right, because we were created for relationships.
Yes.
First and foremost with God, and then with each other. Absolutely wholesome relationships, not the toxic ones. Yes. We are down on toxic relationships. Right. We're not doing that anymore. We're letting that stuff get out of there. Absolutely. So, Rhonda, thank you so very, very much for your transparency. We love you so much, and it is so good to see you. I'm hoping that you can hear us. And I want to thank you for just agreeing when we reached out to you to just say yes, so that you could come and share your story. Because I know that there are lots and lots of women out there that's holding on to this secret, and they want so much to let it go and to be healed, so that they can walk in freedom and walk in love. And so if that's you, reach out to us so that we can help you navigate that thing. We've gone through it. We're on the other side of it. We're healed, and we conquered through the help of God in a small group. Actually,
yes.
It took a small group of women coming together, sharing with that same commonality. Yes. And so reach out to us. So we want to thank you once again for joining in. We thank our special guest, Rhonda Darville. And we thank those that joined us, Pastor P and Lisa, and for whoever else that may be joining in that we aren't aware of. We appreciate you so much. We're grateful for your support. And so until next time, I'm Dee.
And I'm Quintana.
And we thank you for tuning in to the 50 Shades of Red talk show. Be blessed and have a great evening.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Bye, Rhonda. Bye, Pastor P. Bye, Lisa.
Bye, Johnny.
Bye.